Courtyard by Marriott presents CNBC-TV18 DISRUPTORS.
On this episode of CNBC-TV18's Disruptors, we threw the spotlight onto a company that's redefined learning. Centuries ago, knowledge was imparted orally. Then came classrooms with teachers, textbooks, and reference material. This disruptor has taken it one step forward. They've made math and science come alive through puzzles, interactive videos, movies, and app-based learning. I'm talking about Byju's, and join me as we unravel their success story. A young boy growing up in a small village in northern Kerala, Byju Ravindran's lifelines were math and sports. An overactive imagination always led him to create and solve the next math problem in his head. Traveling in a train would mean counting the electric posts that it sped past, their frequency of occurrence, the speed of the train, and whether this information could be used to determine the distance traveled. Fast forward to nearly 3 decades later, and Byju Ravindran's teaching skills have given birth to one of the most valuable edtech companies in the world. Think and Learn Pvt Ltd, the parent company of BYJU'S, the learning app, was formed in 2011. It then took 4 years to create the right tech and media product for students between classes 4 and 12. And thus was born their flagship offering, Byju's The Learning App. With over 30 million customers on its app and 2 million paid customers and counting, let's unravel the success story behind this disruptor. In conversation with the brains behind Byju's, the man himself, Byju Ravindran. Thanks so much for joining us on CNBC-TV18's Disruptors. And let me begin by asking you, but obviously, talk to us about the creation of Byju's, the learning app, which has literally taken the education sphere in India by storm.
Yeah, so it started so I used to teach students VSAT, so that's long back. Now, from Byju's classes to Byju's, the learning app, that happened over a longer period of time.
Interesting.
Though we launched the application in 2015 August, we started building content for school kids from 2011. So the company in this format was formed in 2011 with 8 of my best students who came to me for help with their CAT coaching. That happened mostly by chance. I always used to teach, first my neighbors when I was in school, then my classmates, then once I started working abroad as an engineer, worked there for 3 years. During an extended break, my friends came to me for help. First formal session was for just 35 of my friends, but the 6th one was for 1200. So from 35 to 1200, it just happened by word of mouth. So thinking big was always part of the game. This got scaled up from 1200 students in Bangalore to then later stadiums all over India. So we were 100% offline in 2014, 100% into services. Now we have made that transition, a fairly successful transition to 100% online and 100% products using Byju's, the learning app. There's a huge opportunity in changing the way students learn in schools, exactly the way. So now, how I was learning those concepts when I was in school. So just to dramatize the story, I'll tell that I come from a small village. Went to a Malayalam medium school. Didn't have much of an influence on me as such to spend most of my time outside classrooms playing multiple games. So that kind of forced me to become a self-learner. So being a self-learner throughout, math and science I've learned on my own. The average English which I speak here is something which, and maybe I speak fast because I've learned that by listening to sports commentaries on radios.
Interesting.
So very contextually. So I used to enjoy those games. I used to enjoy learning, a combination of which, obviously, the logic which I learned from my math and the positive attitude which I've learned from those multiple games is helping me immensely in running the business the way we do it today.
When did you think there was a need even for a product like this? Because traditionally, it's always been learning in classrooms, and here you bring in something that's so interactive, that's so fun, which was often restricted to co-curricular activities or sports. When did you think you could marry the two of sorts?
So a need for this kind of learning, which when I say this kind of learning, what is this kind of learning? This is what we are doing today is we are helping students learn better when they learn at home by creating that interest in students to learn, making sure that they like learning, they like the subjects. So for us to achieve that, it was important for us to use all the new age media formats, movie-like videos, game-like interactions, depending on the age group. So the content consumption formats have changed across all other industries, sectors, right? We do spend a lot of time watching videos, watching movies, playing games, interactive formats. But how kids learn, our classrooms have not changed for the last hundreds of years. Our textbooks have not changed. Maybe like today it's a color textbook, but otherwise the power of visual learning, contextual learning, which we can achieve through using formats which kids like, which I mentioned, like videos and games and interactives, is it's such an obvious thing that now what it's doing is a student who's coming onto the platform, right? It's making sure that every student who's learning from this continuously is becoming an active learner. What are the challenges in our system, right? If you look at, and these are things which are very difficult to solve, especially for a country with such large population. Like we have the largest school age population in the world with more than 260 million students in schools. So now finding enough teachers, forget about finding good teachers, that itself is a challenge, right? So we have a very suboptimal teacher-student ratio. The second challenge is it's the fact that in a classroom, it's impossible to personalize learning. Teachers, even good teachers, are forced to run at the pace of the top 2 students or the bottom 2 students, leaving out most in the middle, right? So personalization is impossible in an offline format. And the third challenge, the biggest challenge which I feel is the format of learning. Students it's still learning driven by fear of exams and not love for learning. So it's important to create students who want to learn and not those students who are forced to learn. These are all big challenges, all of us realize it. The easiest way to solve is by using technology as an enabler. Now as a distribution platform, it's almost at the right time when smartphones were penetrating everywhere. We were able to decide that it's best to launch the content through an application, which will also personalize it for the students. Now when I say personalization not just based on the interest, more importantly based on the proficiency level of the student. So deciding to launch an app, so people talk about us as a learning app, but it's basically learning through an app. So it's still education first, content first as a strategy, using media as an enabler, technology as an enabler. That's been the key to reach out to such a large number of students in a short span of time. It's just been 3.5 years since we launched the application. More than 30 million free users on the platform. More than 2 million paid users on an annual subscription. These are all, so I'll only use the word, it's just relative success because it's still not even those who are continuously learning from the app is less than 1% of the student population in India. So there's a long way to go before we call it a revolution.
Initially, who were the target audience of sorts for the...
Within the first few weeks of the app launch itself, we also realized that not just 11th and 12th students who had important exams to take, it was well received by even 8th grade students, and we realized that they have more time for themselves, they are willing to experiment, they are willing to use new things. So in the last 2 years we have also added grade 4 up to grade 7. So today we have products covering from 4th grade students up to 12th grade students, and very soon we are also launching products for lower grades, which is class 1 to class 3.
All right. Interestingly, if I can ask you, Byju, then where do you see geographically the traction in terms of users? Which cities or which smaller towns are actually seeing the numbers for you?
The most satisfying thing is that more than 60% of our users, they come from outside the top 10 cities. Even more importantly, more than 30% of users, they come from outside the top 100 towns.
Oh, well.
So now, the students in smaller towns, very aspirational students, hungry to learn. So the best thing is, in India, you don't need to create awareness for learning. Both parents and students, they all know education is still the only way to make it big for all of us. And that awareness is there everywhere.
Everywhere. If I were a parent and I wanted to know what will Byju bring to the table in terms of the learning app that a regular classroom doesn't provide, in a nutshell, what would the topic be?
So it's very complementary to what's happening in classrooms.
Sure.
So a product positioning, or why the students use the product, right? Or use the learning app. It's a huge advantage when they use it when they learn at home, because as I mentioned, it will create that habit of self-learning, active learning, which will help them make lifelong learners. Now, why that's important? It's more important than ever before, because maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years back, we get into a profession, do the same job for using the same skill set for the 20, 25 years till you retire. Like my parents have taught in the same school till they retired a few years back, right? So, and that's been the case across all industries. But today, it has changed so much that the businesses have to change every 7 years. The skill sets of employees have to change every 7 years, every 10 years. It can be sometimes 5 years. So reskilling and upskilling is so important that we need lifelong learners. We need people who will continuously. So 21st century illiterates are not the ones who can't read and write. They are the ones who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. So. True. Creating active learners, self-learners, lifelong learners, whatever you want, that's where I'm sure we are making a big impact. The big validation is the fact that 85% of the students who were on the platform last academic year, they are continuing with us again. It's a clear indication that the parents won't spend again if they don't see improvement.
Correct, retention rate is...
Their liking is important because that's when they'll start using it. So that kind of... Now, without engaging on the application, you can never make it effective. We have got that right balance between keeping it engaging, but without losing its effectiveness.
Byju, you mentioned that the heat rate of your users will probably cover all of India. One thing we'd like to know is when is it going to span out to the rest of the world? Do you have plans for overseas expansion?
So we already have... 15% of our users coming from outside India, mostly Indian students or those who are going to an Indian school. But very soon, over the next 6 to 8 months, we will launch our first global product. When I say global product, I strongly believe starting in India is a huge advantage in our sector because there is a large captive audience, hungry to learn, very aspirational kids. Now that's a big advantage, right? It's like now, having the base in India, your primary market in India helps you to invest. So because most of the product investments are common, like how you create content, how you create the platform can be reused. You just need to localize in terms of teachers who are on screen so that, now why that's important? Because it's very important for students to relate to the teacher, both in terms of accent and how they teach. So we have brought in some of the most popular YouTube teachers in these subjects, and they come here and they create the product here. We do the pre-production, post-production, everything here. So doing everything in-house is an advantage because we create our platform, we create content so that we can personalize based on, so it's not just a platform play here, right? It's platform plus content, and it's very, very, very integrated approach.
Absolutely.
Which all markets we will commercially launch this or where we'll focus in terms of creating brand awareness and segment awareness is something which, if you ask me, which are those markets which you are keeping in mind? My answer will be, I don't know, but that's something which we'll figure out along the way. And it's to, after launching the app, looking at where we are getting engagement, good initial response from markets, we'll figure out the way to spend money in terms of creating the brand awareness.
And the timeline on this global product, is there anything you have in mind?
So you'll see us launching these global products. When we first focused on lower grade segments, it's for 3 to 8 year olds. So it's for that kids learning segment. That's a segment where it's an open space. It's like, if I just mention kids learning, I'm sure no brand is coming to your mind.
True.
So that the aspiration is to create and own that segment of kids learning and globally.
What fuels your passion? Because yours is a story of passion, whether it was you as a teacher, whether it's you as a businessman, or whether it's you as an entrepreneur looking for investment. What fuels your passion?
If you ask me, the simple answer will be, I do this for fun. So when you do things for fun and when you enjoy doing that, you can do this for as long as you want. And it's completely mission driven. It's very easy to be mission driven education. It's not just about you being passionate about doing what you do, right? It's about creating a large team of people who believe in what you do and giving them the freedom, flexibility to do what they want.
If I can dial it back just a little bit, Byju, for the benefit of our viewers, now everybody knows Byju's the learning app, but even before that brand, you were also a brand as Byju The Teacher. Talk to us about those initial days.
I'm not sure whether the brand, so if you ask me, like, it's still Byju The Teacher is the reason why the company, what created the business is because of me doing something very, very close to me, which I was always fascinated by math from its school days itself. I've learned math well beyond what was required. That love for math, I started teaching my friends, my neighbors. It became popular. It started creating an impact. So I always tell I'm an engineer by chance, a teacher by choice, which made me an entrepreneur by chance.
Oh, interesting.
So it just happened, and it kept on becoming bigger and bigger, better and bigger. So we figured out change models, started using. So when I was teaching students first in auditoriums and then in stadiums. a few thousand students simultaneously. The biggest math session which I've taken will be for 24,000 students.
In a single session?
In a single session. And I used to do that week after week in stadiums. That's in Indira Gandhi Indoor Stadium in Delhi.
Great.
So we used to book stadiums and teach students in stadiums. Now, you think of it, it's a big challenge because at the end of the day you are teaching math. So you need to almost do it like a math concert. You need to keep it interesting.
To retain attention.
And to hold on to the attention of 13, 14, 15-year-olds. But as I mentioned, like it's almost like I always tell that when your best chance of hitting a sixes, if you're playing cricket, it's like you need to try hitting it out of the stadium. That's your best chance of that. Even your misses can go for a six.
True.
So that is always inbuilt and part of the game. But it's like that's only 50%. The other 50% is all about like being diligent, being meticulous, having that discipline, doing it step by step, one step at a time. Yeah, obviously there's no substitute for hard work. So people think that this all just happened in the last 3.5 years, but not many people know that I've been teaching for the last 12 years.
But how did the brand building happen? From 35 to, eventually 12,000?
So initially it was all through word of mouth.
Really?
All this growth in those early years, it was all word of mouth. And then since I was taking the classes, students started talking about it as BYJU'S classes. That's how the main name came. And when BYJU'S classes moved to an app, it was just an extension to become the BYJU'S The Learning App.
Fantastic.
And like I don't do much about it today. Like I've created teachers who are far better than me. It's all at the end of the day. It's never about you. It's all about maybe because of the name and because it's BYJU'S. People think that like when investors ask me what is a key man risk, I tell them that there is no key man risk. It's a key team risk, which is anyway better.
It was an offline services format, and now you're online product driven. When was that milestone or point of realization that you needed to pivot? And when you pivoted to BYJU'S The Learning App, that is going to actually be a much more broader version of that business.
So that didn't happen suddenly on a day. Even the offline format which we used to run, since it was such a large scale format of thousands of students sitting, and for namesake, I was teaching in a stadium live, but they were not seeing me. They were just learning from a screen. So we knew that and that worked because of the strength of the content. But while launching a product which is for students to learn at home on their own, there is no force here. There is no one sitting next to them and forcing them to learn. There's no teacher involved over here. That's when we decided that it's also important to add style to it. So it's like the important is like having the substance is important, but creating it in a format which is also liked by students. That took a lot of time for us to come and arrive at the format which we are using today, which is teachers are there on the screen, but it's teachers are also a lot more powerful in how they explain concepts, because we have been able to make it very visual and contextual. We've been able to create formats very, very age appropriate, because how we do it for a 15-year-old is very different from how we are now creating it for a 5-year-old.
True.
So for 5-year-old, it's a lot more gamified, lot more like it should match the content quality should match the style or the quality which an entertainment content will have. Otherwise, the attention span for today's kids is so low that they'll just switch off.
And the 85% retention rate.
The retention is an indication of its effectiveness, but what is like students like it, and we are sure about it because they do spend more than an hour on the application on a daily basis.
Byju, you were also the first recipient of the Chan Zuckerberg, philanthropic arm, the investment in India. It was the first into BYJU'S. How did that happen? Talk to us about that.
It's again through an inbound interest. It's
really?
It's not just this is their only investment in Asia, and the reason why they decided to invest is because of two reasons. One, they understood that we are not just making a difference for students in metros, even in small towns. So our product is received equally well or better in small towns. That is what got them attracted, because this is the investment from the philanthropic arm. So education, now this is one segment where it's very easy to explain that doing well is equivalent of doing good, because you are not just, you are making a lifelong impact when you when you change the way students learn. That spark which you create for them to start learning on their own which will help them well beyond their annual exams, is one reason why they liked us. The second one is the fact that how we use technology to personalize learning, being the Mark Zuckerberg being like the founder of one of the largest tech companies in the world. These are the two reasons which got them attracted.
2018 was also a very active year as far as fundraising was concerned at your end. So talk to us really about the latest round of funding, and are you still in the market to raise more funds? Do you have appetite for it?
No, we have one thing which people don't. We've been very capital efficient in terms of how we have used the primary capital. Till now we have only used up 150 million of primary capital raised to build a company of this size.
Sure.
So, and that's aided by the fact that the revenue which we generate, it's completely it's all. We don't share that revenue with anybody else. The platform is created in-house, content is created in-house. It's sold by us without using any other channel. So that helps to create a very profitable model. Now, the recent investments, which we have been able to add few more good partners, whether it's NASPERS, whether it's CPPIB, which is the Canadian Pension Fund, and also General Atlantic. Now, these are some of the most prominent investors. We've been able to, we've been fortunate enough to have strong investors, very diverse in terms of sectors as well as geographies they come from. And that's been helping us to accelerate our growth. Now, going forward, so we have raised enough capital, so you won't find us raising more money. We will do that because the aspiration is to also create at least 2 more large markets. When after the product launch, when we see that some of these products are working, if there are interesting acquisition options available, that's where we'll be using most of the primary capital which we have raised recently.
To get this kind of investor confidence, there had to be good performance. So talk to us really about, Byju's revenues and the performance numbers for the last couple of years.
Investors like the fact that there's a fundamentally strong model. Like within 3 years of launching the product in India, we have achieved profitability here. We are also investing in creating new markets and products for new markets. That's where, as a company, we'll continue taking bold bets. Like we have to continue growing fast, investing on both product development as well as looking at some of the new markets and segments which we are entering soon. Now, business-wise, if you look at it, from the time we launched the app in 2015, we've been growing at 100% year after year. The year we launched, we grew from 45 to more than 100 crores, and then 100 to 240 crores, and 240 to close to 500 crores. And after 100% growth continuously for 3 years, now we are looking at, this year we are actually looking at close to 3x kind of growth. We'll finish the year at 1,400 crores to 1,500 crores of annual revenue. We have already crossed 1,000 crores of revenue in the first 9 months.
To get here, your distribution and marketing challenges, what was that journey like? And this will obviously lead me to the next question, which is your association with King Khan himself. So first talk to me about your distribution and marketing, and then I'll ask you about it.
So just like how we have created the product by using a very, very student-centric approach, all our marketing campaign, it's been like, been able to follow the same message, which is about making students like learning, falling in love, making sure that they fall in love with learning, right? That's our core message. So, and that's how we have created all our campaigns. They've all been very, very successful in terms of, because when you advertise on TV with a product which has got its reach all over India, and TV is a mass medium, and the product which we have is for the mass audience, right? It's for students anywhere in India, right? Which is helping them to learn whenever they want, wherever they want, how many hour times they want, and that's the kind of flexibility given to students. So now we brought in Shah Rukh Khan a year back, and after that we have been able to penetrate almost like we have kind of uniform distribution all over India, whether it's south, north, west, east.
If I can then ask you the key challenges, whether it's internet infrastructure, whether it's actually getting on board students to accept this as, complementary to classroom learning, whether it's getting parents to accept it. What really have been the challenges that you've had in your journeys so far and going ahead as well?
The challenge has always been, if you think of it, the segment is new. So creating a brand awareness is just making sure that everyone is hearing about Byju's and Byju's Learning Apps. That's easy. But making sure that they understand what we do, that's what we've been continuously doing. Creating that awareness on how this can help students learn better and when they do at home, right? And having a freemium model helps that, because students, they experience the app, they spend time on the app, and when they like it. This is one segment where once parents see that their kids are using it and they like it, this is where they will happily invest. When students start seeing that their friends are using it, some of their students in their classroom is using it, it's just going to take off. So it's already started happening, as I mentioned, that organically every day there are 50,000 students downloading the app. So that organic approach of creating something which is used by the students, useful for the students, which they will realize once they spend some time on the application.
Absolutely.
And the parents will actually pay for it when they see value in it.
But Byju, in a certain sense, you know, I posed this question to Big Basket as well. Grocery shopping in India has traditionally been very look and feel, touch, you know. Like that, do you think there is still a mindset of parents out there who believe that learning should happen either in classrooms or should happen on a, you know, person-to-person communication level? Is that breaking that mindset, breaking that mold? Is that a challenge, or you think people are seeing beyond that?
No, the people are opening up to, because who's the user here, right? Who's the beneficiary? Student is the user, right? Now, content consumption habits have actually changed. Now, they are very comfortable when you give it in a format which they like. Movie-like videos, game-like interactions, this is what they like. And offered through devices which they are very friendly with, where they are very intuitive when it comes to how they use their, not just the 15-year-olds. You see how a 5-year-old is interacting with the phone, right?
No,
so screen time, spending time on a screen, now learning from a screen is what we need to establish. And it's almost becoming a primary habit for the students in lower grades, and that's why we are very bullish about the product which we are about to launch, which will cover age group 3 to 8, and that's going to be a global launch, not just in India.
All right. Now that you've achieved all of this, you're well on your way, if not already the most valuable ed tech company in the world of sorts. What's next? Do you feel at some level that, you know, I've achieved all this, what can I do to keep innovating, keep growing, keep the brand going?
Now, to answer that question, now these are all just names, unicorns, probably the largest tech company in the world. They don't mean much other than like nice headline on a newspaper or on TV. But the fact is, it's just relative success. As I mentioned, if you just look at the number of students who are continuously learning from us, that's less than 1% of the students in India, right? So there is a long way to go before we call it a revolution. Now, but one good thing about the segment is that creating the real fun is not in creating a $1 billion company. It's in changing the way millions think and learn, and aided by the fact that this is one segment where, and that's why it's very easy to attract talent to this segment, because one segment where doing well is equivalent of doing good. True. So, but there is no scope for complacency. We need to continue growing fast, continue creating content which is relevant for students, used by students, useful for students, and if you do all these things, then I'm sure we can do this for a very long term.
Byju Ravindran, here's to seeing Byju's continue to be the disruptor that it truly is. Thanks so much for joining us on this show. And remember to catch the entire episode on our social and digital media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, CNBC-TV18.com. From the entire team that put the show together, goodbye and thanks for watching.
Courtyard by Marriott presents CNBC-TV18 Disruptors.